Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from the Frontier, and thanks again for stopping by. Just to remind you, we have the entire Mindspeak session with Christine Lagarde uploaded on YouTube and on Rich TV, if you care to have a look. Macro Thoughts, Global Risks 2014. This is the 9th edition of the World Economic Forum. Sort of scan through it very quickly. And sort of the headline is that it highlights how global risks are not only interconnected, but also have systemic impacts, and that's because of the interconnectedness of the way we live now. To manage global risks effectively and build resilience to their impacts, better efforts are needed to understand, measure, foresee the evolution of interdependencies between risks, supplementing traditional risk management tools with new concepts designed for uncertain environments. And I think the new certainty is the degree of uncertainty. Home thoughts this morning: the moon was very beautiful at 6:30 in the morning where I was, and I took a photograph of it. And actually it was nothing like it was at night, because we've had I think it was a full moon yesterday or the night before, and it was so luminous I was transfixed at one point just watching it. I told you Layla's text is Julius Caesar, and last night I said, let's just start reading the play. You can read it to me. And we read about 3 or 4 scenes. And I hadn't actually read it for such a long time. And this quote I like: "Why, man, he doth bestride the narrow world like a colossus, and we petty men walk under his huge legs, and peep about to find ourselves dishonourable graves. Men at some time are masters of their fates. The fault, dear Brutus, is not in our stars, but in ourselves, that we are underlings." Pretty powerful stuff. Moscow sees northern sea route vitiating the Great Silk Road, and basically saying that everyone's been sort of casting their eye on the Great Silk Road, but the thawing of the ice around the Arctic, that's opening up the northern sea route, which I thought was quite interesting. Interview with Ai Weiwei in Der Spiegel, where he says, "My virtual life has become my real life." The Spiegel: Chinese fighter jets have been flying over islands in the East China Sea since November. A few weeks ago, a Chinese spacecraft landed on the moon, and now a Chinese helicopter rescued a group of tourists in Antarctica. China is looking pretty strong and powerful these days. Ai Weiwei: "That only makes it more dangerous. If a master, a wise and experienced man, wields a great weapon, that's beautiful. He can serve peace with it. But if someone's emotions are imbalanced, even if he has the best equipment, he will still mean danger. Modern technology requires calm. You couldn't trust anyone with a car who has no knowledge about vehicles or roads," he said. So, Der Spiegel: "So China's political leadership doesn't have its feelings under control. The whole system, not just the political leadership, the military too, the whole power structure, our education system, the whole of society is suffering from being cut off from the free flow of information. That's why the country can't face up to open competition." And then the Der Spiegel asks, "Why are you put under such manic surveillance? There's more than a dozen cameras around your house. There's a unit, I think it's called Office 608, which follows people with certain categories and degrees of surveillance. I'm sure I'm in the top one. They don't just tap my telephone, check my computer, and install their cameras everywhere. They're even after me when I'm walking in the park with my son." Der Spiegel again: "Your government persecutes you and hasn't let you travel abroad for almost 3 years. Why doesn't it switch off your Twitter account?" He says, "I don't know. There's a clear reason. The relationship between the Chinese government and me is like a Cold War." I'll put up a photograph that I found in the Hirshhorn of him, I think the day of his arrest, and he's got this light bulb, and he's incredibly effective at leveraging the new media ecosystem that we exist in. And then I went to the Hirshhorn, and I liked, there was this installation, and on it's written, "What's in a name?" A name is the first and final marker of individual rights, one fixed part of the ever-changing human world. A name is the most basic characteristic of our human rights. No matter how poor or how rich, all living people have a name, and it is endowed with good wishes and the expectant blessings of kindness, the expectant blessings of kindness and good wishes. Very, very beautiful, I thought. I'll put up a photograph I took of an installation he put in there, like an orange box. Very interesting. Francois Hollande apparently wants Trierweiler out, but the First Lady is refusing to pack her bags. It's really high drama, isn't it? Excitement. I suppose when your poll ratings are that low, probably glad for any kind of excitement. Secret Wars and Black Ops. This is Nick Turse, who's really been very relentless in trying to map what's going on in sort of Black Ops and Secret Wars world. And the interesting point he makes is that in 2013, elite US forces are deployed in 134 countries around the globe. And basically, it is President Obama who has sort of taken a very forward position in these sorts of matters: the drone war, the cyber war, the Black Ops wars. Coming to currency markets, Euro 136.16, the dollar advanced 0.4% against the euro this week. Dollar index 80.93, got as high as 81.06 not too long ago before it traded lower. So let's see how it looks when it gets up there. Yen 104.30, that's down. The yen is down 0.2% this week. Swissy 0.9051. Pound 163.40, Aussie 0.8812, and that's August 2010 lows. India rupee 61.40, and has had its biggest gain over 5 sessions since December the 6th. South Korean won 1061.20, Rial 236.36, the Egyptian pound 696.22, and the rand a little bit firmer below 1090 at 1087.89. I'll put up a 3-month chart of the dollar index. Clearly, it's rebounded quite well, and let's keep an eye on it. But near term, 81.06 looks like a level. Let's see how it behaves when it gets up there. Euro dollar 136.16. I'll put up a 3-month chart of that. I'm still running with a 133.80 stop. Dollar yen 104.30. All last year I was saying I thought it would get to a 105, 110 range. That's where I think we're going. Let's see how we behave once we get there. Gold 1242.97. Put up a 1-year chart. I still think we're going to see a $1,000 print this year. Crude oil last trading at $94.10. I think this is also a long-term sale. I think we'll continue to see a thawing of the geopolitical premium as the US and Iran start to make more progress from that very narrow starting point they've started out at. And I think that will that plus a deluge of potential supply out of Iran will keep the oil markets capped. Interesting that international sales in emerging markets are up by 16% to $53 billion this month, which is the busiest start to a year since Bloomberg began tracking the data in 1999. Issuers from Petróleo Brasileiro, $5.14 billion, Petróleos Mexicanos, $4 billion, government of Mexico, $4 billion, Indonesia, $4 billion. So plenty of issuance, and of course, we're not too far away. We're about to issue a Eurobond. It seems, there's good liquidity still in the markets. Found this interesting about South Sudan. Gerard Prunier, who once came to one of my Mindspeak sessions, and I took this photograph of the audience, and he's really arresting. I can't find it right now, but interesting fellow, wrote a very definitive book about events in the Democratic Republic of Congo. But he's asked, what are the chances of success for the Addis Ababa talks? 0. They are non-existent. This is war. The winner will be he who ousts the other militarily and diplomatically. Only intense international pressure convinced the two delegations to meet here, even if it's only for show. Announced as imminent, would the recapture of Bor, the capital of Jonglei State, by President Salva Kiir's forces, sound the death knell of the insurrection? No, quite the opposite. If the government troops take back the key cities, they will only control the urban centres, but certainly not the rural areas which are destined to interminable guerrilla warfare. Put simply, Juba finds itself in the situation of Khartoum 10 or 20 years ago, master of the cities, but not of the rest. Incidentally, know that this coup d'etat story is total garbage. Hunted down, Riek Machar is probably only alive thanks to his bodyguards, who hid him as he slipped through a fence. From a military standpoint, what are the power struggles? Machar himself told me he has more volunteers than needed, but he lacks munitions and fuel. Put simply, if he doesn't receive help from Ethiopia with the approval of the United States, he will be in a real bind. Thus, in the short term, the Bashir-Kiir team can prevail. In the long term, this is out of the question. So very interesting. Here's what he said. This is referring to Bashir, to a now very unpopular Kiir. Salva, you're hard up. I'm coming to your rescue, but in return you give me back the oil wells. Don't worry, I'll leave you some crumbs, enough to buy yourself some apartments in London or some villas in Nairobi, and to fill your bank accounts in the Virgin Islands or in Luxembourg. And he says, asks what is the role of Beijing? Truthfully, the Chinese are a bit lost. And I think what's interesting about Prunier is that clearly tells you that the Salva-Bashir-China axis has broken cover. It seems to me that the US is definitely on the side of Machar, and we therefore are in a fluid situation. I think, Salva-Bashir and China might have temporarily triangulated Machar, with Uganda's help, of course, but I think the US will have to be accommodated. Interesting that Wall Street Journal were able to get an interview with the President Salva Kiir, and it's verbatim on Rich Wrap-Ups if you care to go there, because otherwise you can't get it unless you're registered. And I apologize to the Wall Street Journal for doing this to them. But it's essentially a very interesting interview, saying, that Machar is still demanding the release of 11 political prisoners held in Juba before agreeing to stop fighting. Why can't a ceasefire be signed immediately? Why not release the 11 prisoners? The journal asks. Surely, as president, you could speed up that process. He says people are working on it. I know there's been international concern that these people must be released. I always tell them that I have no problem releasing them, but let them go through the process of the law. Then he's talking about the mediators and negotiators. It is not me who is dealing with it directly. If you have any problem there, then they come and ask me. Asked about whether Uganda is militarily on your side on the battlefield. It clearly is. Any sovereign state has allies. Any South Sudan as a sovereign state can have allies in the region, can have allies internationally. So Uganda's government is one of our allies in the region, and whatever assistance that we can receive from them and from friendly forces, nobody will tell them not to give it to us, nor can anybody have any right to tell them to get out of South Sudan. So they are participating in the military campaign to some extent, support. Are there troops and jets and fighting alongside your forces? When we talk about support in the military sense, it can cover many things. So it could include air raids and troops fighting alongside your army. And clearly it does. But have a look at that interview in full. It's very interesting. And I think clearly, I don't think he's looking for a compromise. He's, in my mind, looking for an outright military win. And he asked about ethnicity, anti-democratic. He's been told he's been anti-democratic. Saying, do you think the conflict will stop in the coming days? If the other side is willing, it can stop in a very few weeks, he says. Human Rights Watch has put out a report about ethnic targeting, widespread killings. The Appalling crimes have been committed against civilians for no other reason than their ethnicity. In the worst single incident documented by Human Rights Watch, soldiers and policemen from around the Gudele and other nearby neighborhoods gathered hundreds of Noya men during the night of December 15 and the following day and detained them in a building used by the police near the junction that divides Juba's Gudele 1 and Gudele 2 neighborhoods. Survivors estimated that between 200 and 300 men were jammed into a room so crowded and hot that several people collapsed during the day on December the 16th. At around 8 p.m., gunmen alleged to be government forces began systematically shooting into the room through the windows on one side of the building, killing almost all of the people in the room, a few survivors said. And then an interesting report on Yahoo, South Sudan oil revenue up despite the fighting. The business of oil is going on, Sudanese Information Minister Ahmed Bilal Osman. The South is getting more revenue now. There is an increase in fees to Khartoum as a result of the high volume of crude moving to the export terminal. I think what's clearly happened is that they've probably emptied all the storage tanks and pumped it out because they were exactly worried about cutoff. I'd be very doubtful as to whether that's the real... I would be very doubtful that this is the situation now. South Sudan finds friend in old enemy Sudan as rebellion rages, says Bloomberg. Talking about Omar Bashir's motivation in helping his former enemies is based on the need to maintain oil flows from the south. For the very first time in history, they're interested even more than the South Sudanese themselves in retaining stability in South Sudan in some form under a government that is ready to do business, and Kiir is ready to do business. Transit fees for Southern Oil were set to earn Sudan's $59 billion economy about $1.4 billion this year. We are the country to be most harmed from this crisis, says the Sudan Foreign Ministry spokesman. A breakdown of security in the south directly affects our own. Over the long term, Khartoum would like a government in Juba that forswears any support to those fighting the Khartoum regime, that honours the oil agreement. And then saying that actually also the violence broke out on December the 15th. Kiir accused Machar of trying to stage a coup, charge Machar denies, and arrested 11 prominent politicians, including Pagan Amon, the former SPLM Secretary General, and ex-Cabinet Affairs Minister Deng Alor. The arrests have pleased Khartoum, which views figures such as Amon and Alor as loyalists of SPLM founder John Garang. Garang called for the overthrow of al-Bashir's government and united Sudan, rather than independence for the south. So the current situation where you have all the Garang boys in prison, this is a very good situation for Khartoum. I'll put up a photograph of Salva Kiir taken by Getty, and another one of a poster of Salva Kiir at the entrance of the VIP room at Juba Airport that I took 1,508 days ago. The South African oil share is up 1.07% in 2014. Dollar versus rand, I'll put up a 1 month chart that's just below 1090. I think it will, I'm afraid, test 11 and go through it. Egyptian pound 696.23. The Egyptian stock market, Africa's best so far this year, is up 5.32% in 2014. It's closed on a Friday. The Nigerian oil share is up 1%. President Goodluck Jonathan on Thursday replaced the chiefs of defense, army, navy, and air force. A presidency statement said without giving a reason. Put up a photograph of him arriving for the service for former South African President Nelson Mandela at Soccer City. I found this fascinating. ShopRite last year, in its 7 Nigerian branches, sold more Moet and Chandon champagne than in its 600 South African stores combined. And that's an incredible thing, isn't it? And talk about how it's caught on with investors. Biggest market for Guinness, it's overtaken Ireland, and RentCap is forecasting that Nigeria's GDP will hit $5 trillion by 2050, which would be on a par with Japan today. And then somebody else saying about Nigeria, if you don't have the right person holding your hand in this country, you're going to get your fingers burnt. So the director of a multinational food brand in Nigeria. I'll put up, on that note, I'll put up a photograph of the fellow, the barman at the Norfolk, about to decapitate a Moet Chandon champagne bottle. They had a party here, and it's the drinks company are really spending some money on their marketing in Africa. Another photograph with champagne bottles displayed at a roadside shop in Lagos. Merbius of Templeton says he's placing his biggest wagers on Nigeria. He's overweight Nigeria in his index. Ghana, the stock exchange is up 1.82% this year. Interesting story about how India is turning to Mozambique to meet its LNG needs. After securing almost a third of a giant gas field in Mozambique, India pitched for buying most of the natural gas from the project to feed its starving power plants back home. I wrote about this 590 days ago when I said Maputo, boomtown, greetings from the Serena Polana. I can confirm that Maputo is a land of wonderful and flavoursome tiger prawns. The architecture is deliciously retro. Polana was built in 1922. The flavour is fabulously Riviera, very swanky, less than 4 hours by plane from Nairobi. And I said it's surely set to be one of the most in things and places to visit. I was talking then about how Mozambique has popped large onto the global radar because of gas reserves that have been discovered offshore and in the deep sea. I've said before that I believe the eastern seaboard of Africa is clearly the last great energy prize in the 21st century, and I believe this lake of hydrocarbons stretches from Mozambique up through Tanzania, Kenya and Somalia. We remain in the early stage of this discovery process, but Mozambique is further along the curve. On that note, I'll put up a photograph I took of Maputo from a boat, and it looked just like a mirage. We went to an island, and then we were coming back, and the sun was setting. It was very beautiful. Another photograph I took of a photograph I found in a museum in Maputo, and it was obviously taken some years ago, and it sort of caught my imagination. Finally, I'll put up the Coca-Cola advert, the 1 billion reasons, which in Portuguese somehow looks and feels a lot sexier. Coming to Kenya, I refer you back to that Tullow Oil trading update. And Tullow Oil basically said they've updated its estimate of discovered resources in this basin to over 600 million barrels of oil, and expecting to actually go above 1 billion barrels of oil. And I wrote in April 2012, hunting elephants in East Africa's rift basins. One of my greatest pleasures is watching and tracking elephants. I recall turning a corner in the Masai Mara, finding myself alone except for a herd of over 100 elephants. Watched a documentary about the elephants of Kilimanjaro. I learned that elephants mourn their dead just like we do. They actually caress the bones of the departed and apparently never forget. When I left London, I naturally kept myself plugged into the information loop, and a stream of research has been landing in my box. The latest arrival was issued by UBS, and its tagline was "Oil and Gas, Hunting Elephants in East Africa's Rift Basins." It's really worth a read. The thrust of the report is that the great game is on, and it is in play in East Africa. In this report, UBS estimates that Kenya alone might have 6 Lake Albert Basin equivalents. And this is the point. So just in one basin, they've got 1 billion barrels. And then I was talking about the fact that East Africa is like a brand new, freshly minted debutante at a coming out party, and that the price of a Kohinoor diamond. And once you understand that, an energy Kohinoor diamond, then you better understand the geopolitical dimensions of it. On that note, I'll put up a photograph of elephants crossing the Galana River that I took on Christmas Day last year. Another one of elephants crossing the Owase Niro River and the Samburu that I took 821 days ago. A link for that video footage of the 100 elephants that suddenly came towards us the Masai Mara, and finally the elephant photograph I took at the Amboseli in September last year, which I really like. There is talk of, and it was first carried in the African Report news magazine, that Danone is looking to buy out the minority stake in Brookside, held by Dubai-based investment company, the Abraj Group. A lot of interest in the dairy sector. Interestingly, Kestrel, where I do my business through, grew its market share to 20% last year, so good for them. Total equity turnover at the NSE rose by 79.5% last year. Kenya shilling is below 86 at 85.852. Nairobi All Share up 2.71% this year, second best after Egypt. The NSE 20 up 1.91%. Both indices turned lower yesterday, but it was an interesting market yesterday, actually, in point of fact. We had profit taking in the big caps like Safaricom, EABL, but interestingly, 3 stocks hit all-time highs. Centum, which is up 20.769% already this year, Limuru Tea, and Kenya Re, which is up dramatically as well this year. The commentary's all there. If you get to have a look, it's been a strong start. A little bit of profit taking came in yesterday. Let's see how things develop today. I hope you have a terrific weekend. I do appreciate you stopping by. Thank you for that.